should have a sticky note. If you don't, raise your hand. On your sticky note, please write your name and one thing that you remember from dry heat in class last week. One thing that you remember from last week. It could be an ingredient that we use. It could be a method of heat that we use. A method of dry heat. You have 1 more minute. Please put your name on them. All right, I'm going to go around the room, see what everybody said. If you don't know what to put, now is a good time to listen to what some of your peers have said. Remember, have light bulbs go off. Yes. All right, what did you put? One thing that you remember.
Said the yeast helped the cinnamon dough rise while it sat in the overnight.
The yeast helped the cinnamon dough rise as it sat overnight. That is a perfect input. When frying with oil, it counts as dry heat. Making cinnamon rolls with yeast. Ovens use dry heat.
Dry heat killed our yeast.
Dry heat kills yeast. Same thing?
Yeast eats sugar.
Yeast eats sugar, yes. Baking kills yeast. You were down? Well, you're going to learn a lot today. All right. So these are just some of the things that we went over last week. Today we are going to be learning about a couple other different types of dry heat. So a few things that I want you to know. Today we are going to know the key properties and methods of cooking, of dry heat cooking. So those are all of the things that you guys said. You guys remember them so well. We are going to be able to connect all of those things that you said to some of the things that I'm going to be going over in today's PowerPoint. So all of those things that you remember, using yeast, using dry heat, baking things in the oven, I want you guys to keep that in mind when I'm talking about some of our new methods of cooking using dry heat. And I want you guys to understand and relate why dry heat is used for cooking all of these different types of foods. So today I have a guided note-taking worksheet. Please go ahead and stick them to the top of your desk. You will use them later. All right. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more extensively about dry heat. On your worksheets, I am going to go through some of the facts about dry heat cooking that some of them we've gone over and some of them are going to be new to you. And for this, I would like you to write down some of the examples that we talked about next to it. So for number 1 on your worksheet, food is cooked by direct heat. So this is one of the ways that you can use dry heat. In one way, dry heat is used to cook food. It's used by direct heat. So what does direct heat mean? Does anybody want to take a guess? What does the word direct mean?
Right away.
Touching.
Yeah, there's no mediator. It's just right on.
Yes, so there's no mediator between the heat source and the food. So think direct heat, direct touching. The food is directly touching the heat. So an example of this would be something like, what do we have up here? Yes.
Grilling.
Grilling, yes. Grilling. Grilling uses direct heat because that flame and that heat source is directly beneath and touching that food. So what is that going to kind of taste like? What's going to happen to your food when it's being grilled? What are some of the ways that you would describe grilled food?
Smoky.
What, smoky?
Smoky and food grill it like in a smoker.
How does the food cook?
Charred a little bit.
Charred. So the outside's gonna be a little bit charred. So when you have direct heat in your food, is it gonna cook from the outside in, or the outside in, or the inside out? Does that make sense? It's gonna cook from the outside in. So the part that's touching the heat is gonna cook first, and then it's gonna cook in. Does that make sense? So that's when you get that nice char on the outside, that nice skin on whatever you're making. Yeah. Okay. Fact number 2. Sometimes food is cooked by indirect heat in a closed environment. Why is that closed environment part so important?
Because it keeps heat locked in there instead of letting it escape.
Yes, exactly. It keeps that indirect heat locked in there, and it won't escape. So an example of this would be what's a box that has hot air in it?
Oven.
An oven,
Microwave?
exactly. Yes, an oven. So why is this considered indirect heat?
Because there's heat above.
There's heat all around it.
All around
Yes, exactly. The heat surrounds the food, and it cooks it by surrounding it. So examples of this would be oven. What would be food examples? What are some of the ones that we have up here? Cinnamon rolls, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's thinking. If you make them in your oven, maybe. If you make them in your oven,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, cheesy hot dogs.
Sometimes people make them on the stove or a griddle too.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So examples of this would be something like a turkey or a big bird.
Pastries.
Pastries, if you're baking pastries. What is this?
Casserole.
Casserole. Yams. Do you guys like yams?
No.
It's that season. It's coming up. Okay. Another fact with dry heat cooking is some foods may lose their moisture and become dry when you use this method. So let's think of an example of that. A cake. A cake loses its moisture when it starts to bake, starts to solidify. Let's think of meats. Let's say you have like chicken breast. Would you say that chicken breast is fatty, or would you say that it's more lean? It's more lean. So if you cook a chicken breast without doing anything to it, if you bake a chicken breast, or if you cook or prepare a chicken breast using dry heat, and you don't do anything to kind of prepare it or keep that moisture in, what's going to happen?
I'm dry.
It becomes more dry, exactly. What's a way to prepare something that is dry using dry heat and you keep that moisture in? Yes.
Putting it in broth.
Putting it in a broth, maybe. That would be moist heat then.
Oh.
Yes.
Like how you stuff a turkey sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. I'm thinking kind of like, what's another way that dry heat uses heat to cook? It uses air and it uses
Oil.
oil, yes. Yeah, so that's another way to keep that moisture in, that fat and oil. If you have a meat or if you have a food that is already lean and you are using dry heat to cook it, some foods must be naturally tender or have fat and moisture added to it. So an example of this is to add that fat and oil is to wrap things in bacon. Has anybody ever seen that or had anything with that? Yes. Meatloaf wrapped in bacon. I've never had that. That sounds good though. So why does bacon work? To hold that moisture.
Because it's all greasy.
It's greasy. What is in that grease? Fat. Exactly. Yeah. And what does fat mean? Fat means moisture.
Moist. That's a moist one.
All right. So now I'm going to go through some dry heat cooking methods without fat. So dry heat cooking methods that do not use fat or oil to cook.
Wait,
Yep, I'll explain in just a second.
behind this is the triangle.
So, on your shapes that you see on your page, each shape is going to have a different method of using dry heat without fat. So, if you are using dry heat and you are using fat, what is it using to conduct that heat? If it's not fat, then it's
Air.
air, exactly. So, on your first shape, you're going to have broiling, then we're going to explain an example and what that method is. So, to broil something, let's think back to that box that we were describing earlier, that box with a lot of heat in it, which is a oven. Yes. Yes.
We like fries in our broiler.
Using a broiler.
Yeah, otherwise they're bad.
So, if you think of that box, how normally the box has hot air coming from all sides. When you broil something, it's only got that heat coming down from the top. So what happens with that is that you cook it really fast. It's a really fast method of cooking. The heat comes down from above, so it's only cooking what's on top, and it browns the top of the food. So what would be an example of a food that you would want to broil? Yes.
French fries.
Maybe like casserole, maybe.
Casserole, you could kind of brown the top, get a nice hard top on it. Yeah.
What would my mom make like cheese fries? Like the cheese.
Cheese bread is a really good example. So when you've got something that you don't want to bake all the way through, you're only trying to brown that top, you're only trying to cook the top of it, something like cheese bread is a good example because you're just trying to melt that cheese, you're trying to get that nice browned top on it. Yes.
Be right, ABCD triangle.
Yes. Fries work really good for a broiler because you cook the top and then you take them out, you mix them up, you flip them over, and then you cook the bottom and it gets that nice crust on them. Broiling is good for getting a nice crust. For pizza, yeah. Yes. Actually, when Austin gets back, I will. All right, our second method is grilling. We talked about this a little bit earlier. But grilling, you use small pieces of food, and food sits above its heat source. And it adds lots of flavor to the outside of the food. So I know that we traditionally think of only meat when we're grilling, but what are some examples of other foods that you could grill?
Vegetables.
Vegetables, yep.
Like on kebabs, you could like grill like fruits and vegetables.
Fruits and vegetables on kebabs, yes. Potatoes.
Potatoes.
Oh, how would you ruin it?
Would
I mean-
fall through the use tinfoil.
Typical.
Yeah.
Why are you throwing her into things anyways?
You like ham?
Yeah.
What is a kebab? How do you describe what a kebab
Put
is?
it on a stick.
Vegetables and meat grilled on a stick.
Yes.
Shish kebab.
Wait for you.
And the
He's
kebab.
waiting for you.
Oh, okay, that's racist.
Yes.
Are we cooking again this week?
Yes. We'll talk about it at the end of class.
Are we making kebabs?
No, we're not making kebabs.
Bummer.
Alright, are we ready? On to the next one? Okay.
May I get a kebab? We're gonna be drinking steak.
A lot in here. Alright, our third method is roasting. When you are roasting something, it's going to be in a hot, dry, it's going to use hot, dry air inside of an oven. This is going to take a longer cooking time, and it's used for larger cuts. Or think of whole birds. So when you roast a chicken or you roast a turkey. Achoo.
This card. That's on you.
Can we get through these slides? We're almost done. 2 minutes, 1 minute, or no minutes? No minutes. We're good. Okay. Did you get it all? Do we need to go back?
No.
Okay. All right. Our fourth method is baking. We should all be pretty familiar with this one, right? Baking uses hot, dry air inside of an oven, similar to roasting. But baking is used for fish, more tender meats, fruits, vegetables.
Is there an ABC, right? Is there a CD?
Nope, just saying.
Won't say anything.
So an example of that would be like chicken breasts or like what meat, veg on.
Isn't pizza count?
Pizza? Yeah, that counts. Okay. So now we're going to talk about dry heat methods that use fat. So dry heat methods with fat. Now, a couple things about your worksheet. All of these are going to fall into those 3 categories. Your 3 categories are high heat with a little bit of fat, medium heat and a medium amount of fat, or high heat and lots of fat. So when I'm going through here, think to yourself, what one would this fall under? So sauté, to cook quickly in a little hot fat. So, what would that fall under?
High heat and little fat.
High heat and little fat.
That doesn't make sense. Or really little.
I said that because it's important to keep that fat hot when you're sauteing stuff.
Sauté is a weird word. I don't like it.
Who here knows what the word saute means?
To cook quickly in a little hot fat.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Does anybody know what it means in French? This is on a
Sophia.
question on a worksheet you guys will do in the future.
Sophia?
I don't even know what I'm doing.
In French? So to saute means to jump. So let's think about that. If saute in French means to jump.
You cook fast and the food jumps up in the pan. Aw, that's cute.
I know, isn't that adorable? Yeah.
This
Yeah.
card. Can I go now?
We've got We're so close. So close.
Only these 3 or all of it?
Give me 5 minutes. How about that? Okay. All right. So sauteing to jump to cook quickly. Second one, pan frying. So that one is to cook in oil over less intense heat than sauteing or stir frying. So I want you to look at the amount of oil. This isn't a little bit of oil. It's not only getting it to not stick to the pan. It's still enough in there to create a nice browning on the bottom.
Medium heat.
Medium heat and medium oil pan frying.
Is that like when my grandma makes spam?
Yes.
Gross.
Yeah, spam is disgusting.
That is like when everybody's grandma makes spam.
And the whole house smells like spam, and you want to escape, but you can't.
I feel like you experience this a lot.
I experience it more than I should.
My dad loves spam because like his boyfriend, so that's an old
So what's an example of a food that you would pan fry?
Spam.
Spam.
Maybe steaks.
You could do that with steaks. It's gonna create like a nice.
Sin.
It's gonna create like a nice crust on the bottom. You would use it with butter, and you wouldn't use as much oil.
You do not make steaks on the
Yes.
stove.
Navajo fried bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fry bread. All right, our next one, stir frying. So this one falls into that same column or that same category as
Saute.
saute. Yes. Stir fry is another method where you're going to cook it really quick. You're going to use a little bit of oil. What do we use to stir fry? What kind of equipment?
Oil. Oh
Yes.
wait, yeah. I thought you
Our
meant,
big
like, what
wok,
dry
our big
food.
bowl. Yes, exactly.
Are we gonna get to make that again? Because that
Was it
was
good?
my favorite.
It was really good.
I can get you the recipe and you can make it at home.
I don't have
I
a
don't have a
wok at
wok.
home.
Don't have a wok at
If you
home.
don't have a wok, is there something else you could use as an alternative, or do you have to have one of those to stir fry?
No, you can use a like bigger frying pan. All right, and our last one is deep frying.
That's high heat and lots of fat.
Exactly, it is high heat and lots of fat. So if we look at this piece of machinery right here,
Oh, yeah.
let's check this out.
They're fun.
And Jack,
My mom has
What?
one.
do you like fried chicken?
Yeah. Like KFC.
Do you like KFC? So this is what they use. So this is kind of like, think of like a bunch of shelves, and it places that down into that hot oil. So think of deep frying as your food totally covered or totally submerged.
My
In
mom
oil.
has a deep fryer, but it's just like the 2 baskets, and like I eat a lot of mozzarella sticks.
Oh yeah, I would do that too if I had a deep fryer. Yes.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's a thing. Whenever I see her.
All right,
Mozzarella sticks.
last slide.
That's the medium one.
So I want you guys to be thinking about using a griddle.
Oh. LOL.
We are making pancakes. You love pancakes. That's what I was hoping you guys would say.
I can't eat pancakes. That's literally all I eat at my grandma's house are pancakes and spam.
Pancakes and spam
Like together.
sounds like a hearty breakfast.
No, it's spam for lunch. Actually,
Like,
pancakes
do you get, like, any
for
sides,
breakfast
or-
every day, and then spam for lunch.
Spam for dinner.
Surprisingly, no, it's leftovers for dinner.
Leftover spam.
Yeah,
Gross.
my grandma hates spam.
All right. We are going to be making pancakes. A couple of things that I want to talk about as far as making pancakes go. So, the first one, using a griddle, which we won't be using a griddle in our class, but traditionally you would use a griddle for making pancakes. A griddle is cooking on a hot and flat cooking surface. So think it's all going to be nice and have that same even temperature all along it. And what happens is that this gives that pancake that nice, even, golden brown finish. And it's going to give it a nice crust on it. So that texture of it is going to be slightly crisp on the outside. So nice and fluffy on the inside, crisp on the outside.
Are we gonna each make our own pancake? Or are we gonna just all make?
What do you
Are we making pancakes?
Yes.
Are we all gonna make our own pancake?
Yes. Yeah. We'll see. Yes. Depends on if you're making mini or the last slide. Yeah. I can go back. All right. Do we all have these down? So Sophia can peek at the other slide. I'll go back to it in a minute. We'll have time. I promise. When you're cooking pancakes, why is it important to cook them on a medium heat? So you don't burn them, yes. But what's happening is that you want that to be nice and even. It's going to cook kind of quickly. So you want to have that nice, even cook on it. So why is it important that you totally allow one side to cook before you flip it onto the other side? Yes.
So it kind of holds its shape.
So it holds its shape, so it stays together. Are pancakes supposed to be floppy, or are they supposed to hold their shape? Floppy? No way.
I mean,
Yes,
way.
All right. 2 minutes? 1 minute? No minutes? No minutes. Okay. Back.
Oh.
All right. While everybody gets down what they missed, I'm going to freeze that. Please turn these papers into the middle of the aisle. And we are going to talk about our recipe for Thursday. Thursday, not tomorrow, Thursday. Right? Okay, as I pass these out, I would like you guys to please stay with me. I'm going to go through all of these steps. I'm going to go through all of the steps. And as I go through them all, please pick who is doing what. If you have members of your group that are not here, go ahead and assign them a step. We can change if we need to later on.
Are these homemade pancakes? Like,
No misquote. The
Oh.
real deal. Okay. So our first step, preheat a large skillet. Why is it so important to preheat your skillet? What happens if you pour cold batter onto a cold skillet?
It's just gonna go everywhere.
It's going to run everywhere. It'll be a big old sloppy mess. Exactly. So it is super important that we are preheating our skillet before we put the batter on there. I want you guys to notice that it tells you what to set that to. You see how it says 4 or 5? Yes? On our stoves, we've got a setting that is 1 through 10, I think.
Except for the gas ones. So high, low. Yeah, it has 10 little dots, but not numbers. And yeah, 10.
10. So we want that at about a 4 or a 5. Gentlemen, what is the second part of step 1 with oil? What does it say? Yes. So we want just enough oil in our pan to prevent it from sticking. What's going to happen if we put too much oil in there?
You're gonna have oily pancakes.
You're going to have oily pancakes. You're going to have, like, fried pancakes.
Gross.
We don't want pan-fried pancakes. We want nice, fluffy pancakes, right? Right. So, preheat your skillet, not too much oil. Go ahead, write your names on the top of your paper, not your initial, your whole name, so I can give you the points. And then pick out who is doing that first step. So important. Preheat your skillet. All right, the other really important step that I want to talk to you about is our last step. Please look at step number 4. It says to ladle the batter onto the hot griddle. What is a ladle?
It's like one of those things that you use for soup.
For soup, what does it look like?
It looks kind of like a big spoon, except for that
Is it
long handle that goes straight up.
Long handle that goes straight up. Is it shallow or is it deep?
Deep. It's like a little bowl.
It's like a little bowl, exactly. Why is it important that we're using a ladle instead of just pouring it right on there? What was that? Portions. Makes it equal, makes it nice equal shapes, makes it less messy. So please use the ladle. Alright, so how do we know when we are flipping our pancakes?
When it starts bubbling, right?
When it starts bubbling, yes, exactly. It's going to start to bubble. The outside of the pancake is going to kind of turn up and get a little bit thicker.
I've done it. I can do it. My dad taught me. He's a professional.
At your own risk, sir. But I don't want any batter on the ceiling, on other people, on anything else. And if you miss at all, don't miss on yours, not on the other group members. All right?
There you go.
Yes.
Fun.
All right. So you will know when to turn it because your pancake will start to bubble. Yes, exactly. So after you flip it that first time, how are you going to know when it's done on that second side?
You like chicken, you like, well, you put a little spatula, just like,
Turn it. You use a pancake turner.
or
It's called a spatula.
You use a pancake turner to check underneath.
What's the difference between a pancake turner and a spatula?
It's the slots in it, correct?
I think sometimes they call it a turner
A
spatula.
turner.
Like there's a bunch of different kinds of spatulas. That's what I know.
it's spatula.
So you're going to use a pancake turner or a spatula. To check underneath, you want to make sure that it holds its shape. It's not going to run all over the place when you flip it. Yes.
Is there a difference between waffles and pancakes besides their shape? Like, do they use the same batter?
In the batter? It depends. I mean, I think that Belgian waffles are a little bit different.
They have like where you whip the egg whites separate.
Have you been the
That was better for most waffles.
So with a waffle, you want to have a batter that's going to hold everything together. It's going to hold its shape a little bit better. With pancake batter, you don't have to worry about it so much because it's not holding its shape quite the same. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, the rest of your worksheet, please. Assign cleaning tasks to everybody. Make sure that those are all on there. Make sure that I can tell who is doing what.
Have you been the
I
highway
can give you
diner?
points. What?
Have you been the highway diner?
I have been highway diner.
Oh,
It's where I
I
write
love
all of
that.
your lessons.
I had a waffle there. Like,
A waffle there?
It was so good.
They do have good waffles, yes. All right, after you have written down who is doing what for your cleaning, please look back at your sticky note. Make sure that your name is on there, and I want you to write one thing that you learned today, one thing that you learned about that you didn't know before.
We're cooking.
After you are done, please stick it on my pumpkin up at the very front here. Write one thing that you learned. You can use the back side if you need to. Stick it on my pumpkin and come up front and grab your papers. I have papers to return in the trash can.
One thing that we that we make pancakes.
What was that? What were they?
Tomorrow, yeah.
I was not specific.
Yeah, so that's alright.
We're making pancakes on Thursday.
On the pumpkin.
I have no more pastry right now. That's the first time this year.
I want to put mine on the stem.
No, that's, oh, your, for your lab. Just
special.
kind of make sure that everybody else in your team.
Yo.
Who's got the coolest costume tonight?
Me.
What's your costume?
A headless horseman.
A headless horseman.
I'm not going trick or treating now.
Oh, well, how are you gonna do it?
So I'm gonna be in my garage, and I'm gonna have 2 smoke machines or fog machines. It's gonna be like